Hello for a special presentation. And it all has to do with the Eucharist. See the little fish in the bread above my head really is the multiplication of loaves, which I got when I was in the Holy Land, where Christ multiplied the loaves and the fishes, which we use as the anticipation for the Eucharist. And I would like to just say a few words, I don't know, a few minutes about a letter or 2 pages that you have gotten from the office or from Melissa as far as dealing with the Eucharist and Eucharistic adoration. And there's 3 ideas in here, all about the Mass as the Eucharistic celebration, to the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, and holy hours in adoration. And this is very good and is very proper, and I hope you all read it. But I would like to just give a little insight or preparation before you read it, or maybe a thought or two after you read it. And it goes like this. First of all, the most important thing of all of this is the Mass, or the Last Supper, or what we call the Eucharist, the Eucharistic meal. Nothing is more important than that. That is from the very beginning with Jesus Christ with the apostles, all through the centuries, and even till today, where Christ said, "Do this in remembrance of me." And for 2,000 years, we have been doing this in remembrance of what he did and what he still does. Unbelievably, that's the most important thing. Well, the first hundreds of years, really before the Edict of Milan in 313 in the early church, people would redo what Christ did at the Last Supper. Do this in remembrance of me. And they did it in homes, small groups, homes, not churches, small homes. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they had special places that they sort of met at. And then with the Emperor Constantine, the Constantine gave to the church in Rome big places, big buildings, public buildings. They were called basilica. And they were public buildings that the church changed into these meeting halls, or these places where the people would come. So in the early church, the people went to homes and places and big places eventually in the early church. And they went, but often many of their family couldn't come. So they would say, "Could I take a little bit of this blessed bread home to my grandma or to my husband who's sick?" And the church said, "Yes, do it." And they did it. And they would take it home, and in due time, they would set it in a particular place and make perhaps light an oil lamp in front of it for the light of Christ or whatever. And they would give it to their loved one. And this was a sort of a nice place. And they would take and give the Eucharist to their loved one at home who couldn't come to the main area or the main building. Well, not only that, but the church started to do this. The priest would go over to the homes of the people. And so the church regularly would consecrate more of that bread and put it in a special place and lock it up. And the priest would distribute it, or the people could come during the week and get some of it and bring it home to their loved one. That's the beginning of tabernacles. It's a box. It's a locked box that has something precious, Jesus Christ. Well, the church throughout the ages then took this box and they would put it over in a corner. They would stick it in a special room. They would bring it even and put it on their altars. I remember when I was a kid, the Eucharist, the tabernacle, was right in the back of the altar all the time. Some church sort of still is, but that's not the norm now. Things change, don't they? But people would come and make visits to church which was empty. Oh, it wasn't empty because that consecrated bread was there. Jesus Christ was there. I can tell. I can see the oil lamp. I can see the red candle. I can see the sanctuary lamp and pray to Jesus. Well, and people did this very privately, but they also did it publicly. They would come and they would take this piece of bread, the Eucharistic presence of Jesus in bread, and they would put it in and demonstrate it publicly, or where you could all see it for the people standing around, kneeling around, sitting around in the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. And eventually that became benediction. Well, yes, wonderful. And you know, in my youth, when the Masses was in Latin, I mean, they made a great improvement. They took the Latin text on the left side and the English text on the right side, so we could understand it. If you went to a celebration of the Eucharist, we call benediction, where they exposed in this vehicle they call the monstrance, which exposes this to prayer, we could sing in English. We could pray the litanies in English. And we could really understand and worship, pray, and it was very special for years and years and years. When I was in Europe, this is back in the 60s, 1960s, a long time ago, the church workers would close up their shops on the Feast of Corpus Christi. In some places, this was a holy day of obligation. They would close up their shops. All the people would come into town. We would have a parade. It was a holiday, holy day, and we would have a parade. And at the end of the parade was not Santa Claus. It was Jesus. It was Jesus in the monstrance, carried by the priest or the bishop, where we prayed and sang, where I was in Austria, in German, not Latin. And we adored, and we prayed, and we contacted Christ. All this is in history, and it changes, and it continues to change. That's why there are these rules and regulations and so forth. But my only goal is, please realize that the ultimate meaning of all these Eucharistic devotions and pieties, they go back to the Last Supper. They go back to the Eucharist, which we call often the Mass. Nothing is better than that, and that's essential. All of these pieties and expressions, and are they so? Oh, I didn't say. You know what is very nice, I find? That we have perpetual adoration, that an individual can go over to Christ the King in the middle of the night and be in this presence and pray to Jesus, and in other places in our diocese. One thing I don't understand is when we have this, do this in remembrance of me, and we have all the people in a fine liturgy and where you sing and praise God and praise with the church and for the church. And we do this for an hour on a Sunday or a holy day of obligation. And then someone sort of announces, okay, now that we have done all of this wonderful stuff with the Eucharist and Mass, in 15 minutes, you will be able to really do something special. We're going to do the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. We're going to have a holy hour after the holy hour. The holiest hour is the Eucharist, the Eucharistic meal, the Mass. Please keep that in mind and read this. Have a good day. The phone is ringing.